Is purpose a one-size-fits-all thing, or is purpose unique to us? The answer might be simpler than you think. Today, we're talking about purpose. Not that kind of purpose, chap. Not that kind of purpose. We're talking about purpose, and this is something I get asked a ton about on social media. I think it might be one of those things it's so grand, right? It's this big idea that feels like conquering it or just even just touching it is a little bit nerve-wracking.
Well, everybody's supposed to have a purpose.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you just like off the bat to get the convo flowing. Of course, we're going to have some answers for people.
I'm kind of uncomfortable already.
I know, you're going to get uncomfortable here. But so you have a son, right?
I do, yeah.
And he's, what is he, 15, 16
15
right now?
and a half. Yeah, almost 16.
Oh, what an age.
Yeah,
so
tell me about it.
He's about that time where he might be really thinking, percolating on these things. I know when I was 11, I had a real existential crisis. I couldn't go to school for weeks. I was crying. I was thinking about death. I mean, it was a real existential crisis. It was bad, but here I am. Look what it brought through.
You get to hang out with me, so it can't be that bad.
And at the time, I had an atheist father, and still do. Wow. But at the time, I had an atheist father to go ask these existential questions about, like, why are we here? What is this all about? What is my purpose? And his answer, luckily, it was him that I went to because of all people, he was the one to say, Sadie, I don't know. And that, for my 11-year-old self, was one of the most terrifying moments ever. Because my dad, if anyone knows my dad, he talks for 4 hours on end, and he's a talker. So for him to have really nothing to say except for, Sadie, I don't know, was even more terrifying. If he doesn't know, who the hell is going to figure it out? He's like a damn encyclopedia. So with that in mind, if your son came to you and said, Dad, what is purpose all about? How do I figure out what mine is? How would you explain that to
my God,
youngster?
I probably would say, I don't know. But I'm not an atheist. But I think for his age, if an adult was asking me maybe a different answer, I don't know what my purpose, I have an idea, but what I would probably tell him is, what do you, because this is what we do. I would turn around and ask him, but he gets mad when I ask a question, when he asks a question, but I want him to figure it out for himself. But I'm like, what desires do you have in terms of a adult? Like, what is your view of an ideal, in your mind, adulthood?
Okay.
And it usually revolves around what I'm going to be when I grow up. Okay. Because in this United States that we live in Western culture, you are, like we talked about, you're identified with what job, fortunately, unfortunately, but that's, how it is. Yeah. And so I think that percolates down to these little guys and girls. And in his case, it's, what am I going to be when I grow up? I think that's, to him, like, purpose. What am I going to be when I grow up? Because I think he looks at that. And I think that's redeeming, because I think what he's saying is what I'm going to be when I grow up does define my purpose, or my purpose is what I'm going to be when I grow up, because what I want to be when I grow up is it should be my purpose.
You want it to be on purpose. And
it wants to be on purpose. So I think that's when he's asking that, and with him, it's kind of stayed in a similar, he'll deviate like all kids do, but he's had an overriding theme in it, and that is, I want to be in the military, right, in whatever thing it is. And it kind of deviates from here and there. And, he's...
I think this is an interesting way to enter this conversation, because so many young people today, and it's much more prominent, I think, today than ever, are wanting to have meaningful work in their life, wanting to do something with their life that feels on purpose, and are striving for this concept of being purposeful, having purpose. We relate it to our worth. We relate it to how we're valuable as a human being. And then we start relating our work and what we do on a daily to our worthiness, to our value. But I think it's a good place to start going in. But the issue that happens is we become, I see it in a lot of young people today, right? Where there's this really fierce, angry activist that comes out that is just mad at the world and just trying to make their life matter so hard that they start being abusive or overly aggressive on whatever their plight is, to a degree where they won't take anybody's opinions or perspectives into consideration. And now they're what we would call an extremist, an extreme activist.
Yeah, and there's
something like
extremists
that.
on all levels, you know,
Right.
up, down, left, right.
And of course, there's some beauty in activism and standing for what you want, and that there is definitely some meaning that you can place inside of there as well, I think. But I want to let's just kind of layer by layer break that up so that we can see it for what is helpful to us and what is maybe taking it to a level or using it with a label of being purpose where it actually isn't. It's just something, it's pseudo purpose, right? It's what makes you feel
primeval or
good right
something.
now, but undercover, when you go to bed at night, you're like, wow, I was really violent and extreme, and you know, I decided I want to cancel a whole type of people because they don't fit into my current whatever I'm being an activist about.
Well, the problem with that is that's authoritarian, and that's
Exactly.
horrible. It doesn't
So this
matter
is
what.
great.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
that you use the word authoritarian, because what we want to be is authoritative, right? We want to be
Yeah, good
this
point.
center
Yeah.
balanced person. We don't want to be an echo chamber. You know, we don't want to be what I would call like an echoist, or this is a term that's been used a lot, but an echoist. We don't want to be the person who just tells everyone the same, you know, gives back what they think will please another person, and it's a softie essentially. And we don't want to be on the other end of the extreme, an authoritarian who's just trying to command everyone to do, you know, at their will. We want to be this person in the middle, someone who's assertive, someone who is authoritative with what they're bringing to the table. They want to have authority in it, but you don't want them to become abusive or too wishy-washy that they have no opinion at all.
And unfortunately, people in authority, these authoritarians, usually did not get into a position of this supreme power because they're good people. They don't. I mean, if you go back, you know, I teach some history stuff, and you go back and you look, and you know, you do not want to be that person,
Right?
Because they're a-holes.
And this is the pseudo purpose that I want to make sure we're decoding today, because you can pump yourself up and become this really scary individual by believing that you're doing this with righteousness, right? If you believe
for
you
you,
are
maybe
righteous.
for you, but for the half of the population, at least, you're an a-hole.
And there's a huge discernment too, just as a side note, between doing righteous acts and things that are in integrity. You know, we talk about integrity. so much on the show,
You're absolutely right. Yeah,
versus believing one is righteous and that what they're after is the only truth and everybody else's truths don't matter, because that's just fucking bullshit. Everybody's having a subjective experience with a different truth.
And they can misread religion and things
Sure.
like that, and they
And
somehow
so
think
I'm
on the-
derailing us a little bit.
No, but I
right,
love it.
from the
This is-
topic.
we're Captain Derail.
Captain Derail. But so back on topic of thinking about purpose, and let's start unwinding what you were talking about with, you know, how you would explore that with your son, or how he might respond to that question that you asked him in response to his question. So this idea of identifying our purpose through our work that we're doing, or thinking when I grow up, I'm going to figure out my purpose, you know, through what I end up doing for a living. I think a lot of people think that their work that they do has to be this like all meaning, all purposeful thing. And instead, I think there has to be actually some real work ethic built into that as well. It can't just feel juicy and great all the time, because if we were to define purpose and try and make it as simple as possible, I would define purpose as self-mastery. So, and I also would define success as self-mastery. And self-mastery, I know you're going to ask me, Chap, how to, you know, define that. Self-mastery is essentially starting to look inward and understand who you actually are.
So it's subjective self-mastery as opposed to objective self-mastery.
Totally subjective. It's 100% a subjective journey to figure
And that's a
that
big
out.
thing to understand, because it only should matter to you that you are meeting your you're meeting your goals, you're meeting your purpose.
Values,
Your
yeah.
values. And you know what, I'm really glad you said this, because I have been doing some self-reflection. I don't call it, I'm doing self-reflection. I'm just like thinking a lot about things, you know, lately, as people do when they hit my age. And a lot of people go into, you know, some people go into midlife crisis at I guess my age, I don't know. But I hope I don't think I'm, but I'm looking. And the good thing about these youngins, these Zoomers or whoever they are, is they have that, I need to have that purpose. I need to fight. That's amazing, because if you have that now, you won't have to worry about when you're older. But the thing is, you don't want to become a zealot. Okay.
That's the thing.
And with my kid, I know what he's doing because everything he says, it's got two themes. It's none of it's related to money. One is I want to have fun, Dad. I want to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I want to enjoy going to work. And the other thing is, I do want to be looked at as someone who is somewhat heroic. And I think that the first of all is great, because you're just worried about yourself. I want to have fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second one is like, it's also great. However, you don't want to become the nice guy or the doormat or the corporate doormat or the yes man. You don't want to be any of that.
Yeah. So then it's really about being liked and not liking yourself yet.
Yeah.
And there is that piece about what was his last, how did you articulate his last point?
No,
what it might be?
It's either it's fun.
Right.
The overriding goes, the fun is, or I want to be looked at in other
as a hero.
As a hero.
You said.
Yeah, as a hero.
I just wanted to make sure I pulled back the right word.
Because we live in the United States, we live in Western, we have all these movies, and it's the hero's journey and all the books, comic books, whatever.
And so, as always on the show, we're always going to self-reflect, right? And when we want to be seen as the hero, which is very normal, very human, we have to see ourselves as the hero first.
And
right?
when we say at the end of the thing, when you say you already are that.
Right. And
you already are that.
This whole journey that we're always taking you on through hopefully the energetic that we're giving in this show is about what we call remembering that you already are. And when we say remembering, it's really a journey of going inward and looking at those parts of ourselves that we have displaced and the members of our psyche, we can say, and remembering them into alignment. That is realizing essentially our truth. You can call it your authentic self. You can call it the divine, whatever you want to.
And when you say purpose,
I want to say that is the hero that we have to realize or remember in order to interact in the world in that heroic sense that we think we're after.
Okay, that's what I was getting. Okay, so I'm glad we're on the same page with that, because when I think your purpose, I think what is your hero's journey, or what do you think how do you become the hero to yourself?
So the simplest way I can say it, and it probably won't be that simple, so we can break it down if we need, but that there is this thing inside of you. We can call it a whisper. The Greeks called it a daemon. You can call it this part inside of you that is essentially yearning for you to realize it and to go through your hero's journey to turn who you are into it. And this alchemization process, this transformation process, this journey, this hero's journey that you're being called on by this inner whisper. We call it spirit, soul, God, whatever you want to call it. That is the most important journey you will ever go on, you will ever partake in. And that, I believe, is actually what purpose is to say yes to going on that journey. Every time you hear that little whisper, and that whisper comes in a lot of different ways. A lot of times it looks like pain. A lot of times it looks like a beautiful sunset that inspires you to create more. Sometimes it looks like a beautiful woman who inspires you to show up in ways that she might be calling you to that maybe are actually better and healthier for you as a man, And there's so many ways that it shows up in your life. And every time you say yes to it, you're saying yes to that hero's journey and to becoming more and more of that on purpose, full potential, full spectrum being.
Yeah, and I think that kind of like as a practical manner, with regard to attracting somebody of the somebody that you're interested in, and in my case, say be a woman, is if you have purpose that is is not, a destructive, obviously, because some people could have that purpose. If your purpose is not that of a bad guy, and to you it's pure and or a good of a solid purpose, and you're pursuing that and you're moving in that step, as long as you're not so rigid that you don't see other sides of arguments and you don't see other people or whatever, that other people are on the similar journey and it just might not align with you, people can see that as a very attractive thing. And I think that shows you have a goal and a mission and you're working on it.
Before we go into that piece of it, I think when you said, your purpose is to be a bad guy or whatever, you're a villain, which does serve a purpose, sure, because we learn from it. There's things that come out of it that are important for humanity or, for the existence of the planet or however you want to look at it. But if we're going in and we're decoding this, is the person who is living so deeply out of alignment that they are inflicting pain on their, fellow humanity or the planet or, any part of this universe. They're so asleep, essentially. They're so blinded that they are creating an obvious shadowy self, or they're creating from an obvious shadowy dark place inside of them, right? And when they're doing that, can we really say that they're in alignment with their truth or
no,
living
that's what
on
I'm saying.
purpose?
Assuming you're not that a-hole and you're moving towards a purpose that may or may not be agreeable with someone else, the fact that you at least have a goal and purpose that you believe is of pure motive and you're not hurting other people, then it's attractive and it's redeeming because I don't have to agree with your purpose, but if it's a solid purpose to you and you're not hurting other people, that's like it's in a.
So I don't think there's actually a way to not agree with someone's purpose because that's what I'm getting at.
Purpose, well, no, but if you're pure evil and you're killing people and that you get pleasure and that's your purpose to eradicate a race
or
of
you
people,
believe that's your purpose.
That's freaking not cool.
And that's
right?
what I'm trying to get to is an understanding of purpose that isn't about what we do out there. Purpose is actually the internal journey that we take. That's why I say purpose is self-mastery. Purpose is the internal journey we take. It's the hero's journey, which is actually a fully internal journey. The actions that we take from that internal journey, once we have remembered those lost parts of ourselves, right? Once we have put ourselves back in order, let's say, integrated ourselves, become one of integrity, we now are acting in an integral way. And that's why that word is so powerful, because we're out in the world and the actions we do from that place is heroic because we're coming now from the true authentic self. So for anyone to be interacting in a purpose that actually isn't in alignment is not actually acting on purpose.
This is my argument to that.
Okay.
I agree. I hear what you're saying. And I think this is where this is fun.
Yeah.
Okay. My argument to that is this. Okay. Let's talk about history. Mm-hmm. There was a certain guy with a little mustache, okay, in the 30s, okay? His purpose and his people's purpose were to eradicate certain classes and races of people.
That's what they
called
their purpose.
No, hold on. But they believed, some of them believed truly that was a noble cause.
Yes.
And they felt it was for the betterment of their race or
they
germ
believed
or whatever
they were
it was.
righteous.
And we know who we're talking about. Correct. Mm-hmm. So to them and their little gang of a-holes, that was a noble cause.
Right.
But thank God for the rest of the conscious world, like the West, we're like, that's horrible and we need to stop you. And the thing is, if they would have won the war, and they would have written the history books, they would have claimed that was a righteous purchase. And there's yeah, but that show's horrible, by the way. Just so you know, that show was going one direction. They completely cracked the bed, but whatever. That's a whole nother, whatever. So anyway, but yes, what I'm saying is this. This is what I was getting. I was agreeing with you, but I'm saying, assuming you're not that asshole.
So you're saying this group
don't hurt somebody else is what I'm saying. No matter what you're on now, because we're seeing a lot now.
Well, you'll know it's not in integrity as soon as you are transgressing someone else, right? We did a whole episode on
correct, and that is a very libertarian comment. And this is what I'm getting at is that, hold on, and that's what I'm getting at, because if you are one of these activists, okay, and you believe, and all your friends believe, and you're a young 25-year-old, and whatever your cause is that's valid to you and all your people, and you're forcing that cause on some other people that have their own thing and maybe they have a different religion or different whatever, and you're failing to understand that they in their minds might be right because you're so convinced in your mind you're right. And now you're forcing in an authoritative way your policies on those people. That is a form of a little form of evil.
Absolutely. And I think we should have a conversation about evil in just a moment, because that's an important thing to be able to break down as well in this. That idea that you're talking about, if we can not even rewrite, if we can finally understand the definition of purpose is an internal job, not anything to do with external, then we become the Hitlers of the world or whoever, and we are no longer trying to put what we're projecting, the shit that we're projecting, the evil inside of us, out onto the world. Instead, we are looking inward and going, why is this thing showing up in me? What is fucking happening? And we're integrating it properly as an adult conscious self into what our truth is, which means both the shadow and the light are now able to live side by side. We have befriended those suppressed, severed parts of ourselves instead of letting them insidiously come through us and be projected onto the world as evil, as evil acts, right? Or letting them fester and create thoughts in our mind that make us think we are righteous and then do evil acts on the world with this voice in our head that we are righteous.
Yeah, because the voice isn't going to tell you, by the way, buddy, you're evil, go do evil things. They're not saying that.
No, it wants to be the hero.
The voice is saying, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job. And it comes on all sides, and we're seeing it now in this political spectrum we live in. And whatever your justification is, it's fine. Like, it's totally fine. Like, you can have your beliefs, you can have your thoughts, you can have your discussions, it's fine. But once you start damaging that ideal in someone else and allow them to have their own purpose and their own thoughts, once you start damaging that and you think you're bad, then
attempting
you're bad.
To control.
You're bad.
That's the whole basis of this show. We've gone over in so many different ways and from a lot of different perspectives, and I hope it beautifully illustrates what we're getting at. As we do this in every episode, cuts down a new layer, or brings to light a new layer. It's really about bringing the power back into ourselves, remembering that you already are, right? You already are the one who is in power. You're the one who houses all of the light and who houses all of the evil. All of the acts that come through you are only coming through you because your consciousness or subconsciousness is allowing that to happen. And so when we can take responsibility for our own actions in that way, instead of saying, it's your fault, you're a bad person, and so I blame you for being the one who has to do evil acts to stop you, it's a tricky conversation because as we go through our lives and because of the way the culture that we live in dictates so much to us out of integrity, we end up with this idea that we must live so externally outside of our bodies and be such an effect on everything outside of our bodies that we forget to come back home and put together the pieces of us that make us whole, right? This is about remembering our wholeness, our authentic self again. So that whole idea of self-mastery equaling purpose, that whole idea of coming back inward, looking at all the things that are going on inside of us, and that being what creates that is our purpose. I don't even want to say that creates our purpose. Our purpose is to go inward and do that self-mastery work. And once we have done that, now we can actually, in integrity, right? We have integrated the lost parts. We have brought them all home. Once we can do that, we're in a conscious place interacting in the world. And another word for that would be an integral place interacting in the world. Now we act in the world in integrity and on purpose because we're literally living our purpose. We have done that wholeness, we have created that wholeness so that we can go out into the world and we can do things that are not from a place of trying to, rob Peter to pay Paul. We're not coming from a place of scarcity where these people can't live or can't exist in the way that they're existing because it bothers me because I have some shit that I haven't worked out inside of me, Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I think this is the unfortunate part of living in today's society is for these young men of the world, God, navigating this and trying to understand it is, and this is with my kid, I'm like, I don't envy you. You know, I don't, God, I feel, I'm like, I don't know what you, I'm just, I can't imagine having to be a young man or in your early 20s and having an F. Somehow they do. But the thing is it's like, I just don't, I think in another way to say it, in a more simplistic, more infantile way or juvenile way, is you got to get your shit together. And get your shit together before you start worrying about what little Timmy and Sally's doing.
Exactly.
Worry about, and this is something that was so ingrained in me at a young age, and we've talked about this before, is don't worry about the other guy.
Right.
Just
And
worry
we're
about
trying to
you.
be saviors instead of heroes, right? And heroes is even a little bit of a tricky word because it can be defined so many ways.
It's not the best word. Yeah, I agree.
We're trying to be saviors or heroes instead of be whole, right? And really, to be a hero is to be someone who's coming from integrity, coming from wholeness. Integrity means wholeness.
Well, and hero doesn't make you whole, but if you're whole, you're kind of a hero.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. So, and saving people, though, is what we think is going to get us accepted
I see
and
what you're
received.
saying. Yeah, so I see what you're saying.
You know, it's tricky because we use the word hero as someone
it's
who
really
goes
more
and saves.
savior is what the negative that I'm kind of implanting
Right.
on some of
But
these.
just if you can feel that feeling when I say the word, right? Like if you're watching this or listening to this, when I say I'm going out there and I'm going to save all men, that's what my whole dictate for this show is that I want to save men from themselves because otherwise they're going to be terrible.
Because they don't know enough to know, and you better,
they're
right.
no gooders.
Right. Okay.
Right. And exactly. What is that feeling that comes up? It's like, I don't want to be saved. I don't want to, don't fucking tell me what to do. No, the reality is, you know, in the bio, in my bio, it says, I'm on a mission to awaken modern man, right? Awaken is a really important term because this is about awakening you to your actual power. Your power comes through your wholeness. Your wholeness comes through self-mastery, that journey, that hero's journey that we're talking about. And that is what encompasses living on purpose, in your purpose. Then what happens when you have that all going, and by the way, you don't figure it all out and then you're just like amazing for the rest of your life. You never have to do anything else ever again.
Oh, no?
No. But this hero's journey is a journey toward enlightenment, right? And we're always uncovering layers of that. And if I was to define enlightenment, then it would be that it's transcending the long-term suffering through a willingness to feel. And we can get further into that if you want. But this is what we're talking about when we're talking about going on that hero's journey and having a real fucking up and down road, as always, where you're going to have to fight your own dragons, you know, these internal dragons that come up, and they're probably old ass dragons that you're going to have to slay and look at and get in the cave with them and figure out what's their, the magic you have to do in order to release them or to transcend them in some way or alchemize them and make them your buddy, and maybe you're flying on their backs pretty soon. I don't know what you're doing with these dragons, but you got to go on this hero's journey in order and choose it, right? In order to do this work, and that only comes through a willingness to actually feel what's going on in yourself, because your body is always that indicator that shows you exactly the dragon you need to start working on.
Yeah, I think that, and a couple of comments that I have with that is, or just that are general on this is, one is, where are you getting, not you, but where would a young man be getting these messages from on what is your purpose, or what is, like, who and what are these people? How are they receiving the broadcast of what is, their purpose or the hero's journey? And, maybe a couple hundred years ago, it was heavily religion. And then, maybe it was your school.
That's such a great question.
Yeah,
like,
now,
what is our initiation practice for young men?
Well, yes.
There is none right now.
Well, there is none in our culture,
This is a big problem.
Which is weird, yeah. But where are they getting their influence from?
And this is why we've said so many times, right? Men, boys, and eventually men, if they haven't done this when they were younger or their parents haven't set it up for them or whatever, need to have male peer groups that are hopefully also men on the same journey and consciously trying to strive for that, and or elder male mentors. If you think about tribes back in the day, or like you're talking about, there's been so many times in history, places in history, philosophies in history that found ways of creating initiation practices and rituals for young men to go through so that they could transcend from boyhood into adulthood, into this more mature state and start understanding these things. Shamans actually go through, this is an interesting little side note, but it's definitely related. Even people with more on the schizophrenic side of the spectrum, which I have extraordinarily vivid dreams, so I would put myself closer to that side of the spectrum, where I have these, I have a visceral interaction with my subconscious, let's say. So in an old school tribe, let's say, they didn't have the name for it at the time, but they had more of a schizophrenic tendency. They heard voices. They had some sort of interaction with something magical or mystical at the time, right? They didn't have the scientific terminology we do or the psychological terminology we do. Well, the shaman would take that child because they believed they were gifted, and he would teach them about the different members of the psyche. The shaman journey and why they use all these plant medicines is to go access this essentially this land, this headspace, or maybe it's even a body space, but this other place where you start realizing that you have all these members, all these different archetypes happening inside of you, and you get to choose who's at the helm and when. So if it's your warrior that needs to be, on the throne, then that's who's there because you need to fight a fight. Or it's your lover that needs to be at the helm because that's what's called for in the moment is mercy and care. Or it's your magician that needs to come in the helm and, practice medicine or law or whatever it is. You get to be the chooser. But until we really start realizing that all these members are essentially living inside of us, we don't have to turn into schizophrenic or, multiple personality disorder, but we have these going on inside of us. And when we can hone that and remember them, we get to actually act from a place of consciousness, or, they would say, Jungian theory would call it the king, would be the one in charge of his realm. And that's the magician, the lover, the warrior that are all sitting in this realm. And now as the conscious king, now that you have this consciousness, you get to indicate who's going to actually run the show and win. So the shaman, anyway, would bring this person back and they would become shaman as well, right? Because they have gone through the hero's journey to live in their purpose. And their purpose was indicated maybe as a young person, not always because they had a, schizophrenic tendency or they heard voices or this, but because they had something that seemed they were gifted to move towards that direction of opening their mind and seeing themselves as parts. So just an example of the hero's journey and just an example of how we can get ourselves to recognize purpose through looking internally and seeing what is needing to be mercifully accepted that has probably been stuffed down and not allowed for a long time because we didn't think that we would be accepted if we had that stuff online. So that part of us needs to be brought back into balance so that we can finally act on purpose. And from that place that is aligned now, that is our wholeness.
Yeah, but you got to get there. And so that this journey never ends. And
right.
And
we had someone on the show, Jimmy, who said, we asked him, one of our things was said, my purpose is, and he said, my purpose is to find my purpose. And I thought that was a beautiful example of what the human journey is. It's always unfolding this self-mastery. It's always learning about who you are in this phase of your life, and deepening that. So go on.
And it's kind of like, I look at it as, I'm a little different, but I look at it as you're going on a trip, okay? And it's a motorcycle trip. Yes, I'm guilty, fine, a motorcycle trip. And going on a motorcycle, because anybody that's a long distance motorcycle rider, not just going to a bar and back, will get what I'm saying. You're going on a long distance, you just pick a place. That's all you do. Mm. You just pick a place, not because, they have good margarita. Well, not margaritas, you don't drink.
Yeah, that's a great
But
point,
it's like, that's not what you're doing. And when you get older or you really love the fact of the ride. you don't care where it actually is, but you have to have a destination. Otherwise you don't have a journey.
Which is fascinating because I have said it in that way before. On my previous show, it was very much about just choose something and start there, and you will get closer to realizing what your purpose is. Just pick a lane and just go towards that, and you will quickly find out if that's fully not for you. You will figure that out quickly, and if it's not for you, then it will help you redefine something closer to what is. And every time you take that initiative to begin a new trajectory, it'll get you closer and closer to your purpose.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with that. That's not really what I'm saying, but I agree 100% with you. So like Jimmy's is, my purpose is to find my purpose. If you ask me what's my purpose, it's to enjoy the journey.
Yes.
There is no purpose.
Exactly.
There's no goal.
And I don't believe there is a goal. And so that's why I was saying that was a previous way I would say, or I understood this. But I think at this point in my life, and maybe it'll change again, I understand it as, yes, you can actually uncover yourself and create this, become more masterful of yourself and know yourself better, and you have to, through life experience. And so that means that picking a direction and going after something that feels like, hey, maybe that's my purpose, if that's the way that you're perceiving it and that feels like that makes sense to you and this other shit I'm saying doesn't, then that also can begin the work for you, right? If I go towards a direction, I say, you know what I want to do? I want to be a talk show host, and I want to, start the show, and I'm just going to begin, and I'm just going to fucking see what happens. And then I get there and I start realizing, this doesn't feel good for me. It feels, I don't know, it feels good for me, so it's hard for me to imagine, but, it doesn't feel good for me. I'm overwhelmed. I don't like my voice. I don't like people listening to me, whatever it might be. Okay, cool. Now I know a lot more things about me, right? I'm becoming more self-masterful. I'm learning what actually I do enjoy. Or I'm learning that I need to maybe take some voice classes, and I want to, I do like a lot about this job and a lot about this direction I've taken, and it feels very good and fulfilling in a lot of ways. So let me get more masterful and skillful in certain things that would make me feel better about being here. That's another direction it might take you. Or you might say, this is not for me, and now I'm going to go, I'm going to go be a school teacher or something, right? And go in a totally different direction. That indicator, though, that you took seriously and you said, okay, how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this if it didn't feel right? And you decided to either add some skills to stay in the job, or you decided to take a different job, and go a different direction, is getting you closer to understanding self more fully. And so I believe it's also getting you closer to your purpose, since understanding self is our purpose.
Yeah, and I think it's in another simple way to my, it's when somebody asked me, where are you going on this long motorcycle ride? Why? I don't know, maybe Helena, Montana. Why are you going there? Is there anybody there? Why are you going there? What's there? Was there like, I don't know. I just picked it. I'm going because I love the journey. And so maybe that's because I'm actually a hippie with bald head. But the thing is I don't really care about, like, so our talk, okay, why are you doing this talk show with Mercedes, right? To make a lot of money, and yes, but that's not why. The reason is because I love Mercedes and I love everybody that I work with, and it's a fun journey. It's because of the journey. It's not the outcome, it's the journey. Because I know the outcome will be what it is.
Right.
And you try hard, it'll be better. You don't try hard, it won't be as better. But the journey is still the journey.
Right.
And the journey is what's beautiful.
And so you're saying, essentially, if I'm getting it right, your purpose is to make sure you're enjoying the journey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's the journey for one. Go on a journey, and then number two is to do it. And some things are going to suck about the journey. Some things are great. When you were a kid, remember the first time you flew on an airplane, or roughly?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you care where you were going, or was you going on an airplane? Because when I'm a guy, and when I was a kid, I was like, we're going on an aeroplane. We're going on an airplane, and it's got, I don't even remember where I went, but I remember the airplane.
Yeah.
And like a train trip. I remember going on a train. It happened to be in Soviet Russia, but I was going on a train, and it was like, this is a train trip. This is so cool. And I'm looking out the window. I don't even remember where I went. I think I ended in like Leningrad or something. I don't even remember, but it was like, whatever. But it was like looking around and seeing. And so I learned at a young age, right? Or I look back at a young age. It's really, to me, just to me, I'm not going to speak for other people, but just to me, my purpose is to go on a journey and enjoy it.
Yes, and I think saying yes to the journey, the only way you get to enjoy the journey is to be, a little bit self-assessing and self-critical, because otherwise you're going to believe that everything that's happening on your journey is happening to you, right?
Oh, no. I'm just a little cog in the game of life, and I love it that way.
Yeah. So I think we're in agreement on
Sometimes.
how to explore.
No, it's all the same.
explore
It's all the
purpose.
same. It's all the same thing. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, it really is, and it's such a dense topic, but it's really, I think it's really simple when you finally grasp it. You know, it's like, oh, I'm already on the road. You know, I'm on the road. I just need to remember that I'm on the road.
Yeah.
And as you do that, then you're living on purpose, literally.
Right. That's it. That's all
Yeah.
you're saying. You pack your bags, you actually set foot outside of your house. You're now in some conveyance and you're going.
So the point maybe to take away is, instead of focusing on purpose being this like external goal of some sort of
Light at the end of the tunnel or whatever it
enlightenment,
is,
yeah,
right.
even focus on being here now and living on purpose in each moment and making it as joyous as possible while taking responsibility for your side of the street and letting go what you can't change.
Perfect. That's it right there. There it is.
Okay, good.
There it is.
All right, y'all. You know what to do. Subscribe, comment, connect, click through the links below. Give us all the love because we love you. We do this show for not just our selfish reasons because we're having so much fun on the journey and on the road,
Yeah.
but also because we want to share all the things that help us live our lives blissfully, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, and living on purpose. So, as always, we're going to remind you, you already are.